Jackie's given me some directives on the areas I'm meant to focus on. And the first one she mentioned was any challenges. Well, NDIS does present another change, and families for more than 50 years have been changing as the politicians, as the social changes move the goalposts, then people have had to adapt to whatever that is. And we're in the midst of another of those situations. So part of the deal in this is joining together with others to get the best team possible to meet the challenges that will be continuing. NDIS is not going to be the great pinnacle in heaven. It's going to be a struggle, and that will always be the way. People will need to be vigilant, make sure it stays on course and meets what they want out of it. It's the beginning of the new challenges. It's not the end of the challenge. But having said that, it does have lots of potential. Just before I start on Jackie's next question, which was about some positives to do with it, let me tell you a couple of the not so goods. There was a conflict in the past year or so between NDIA and the City of Greater Geelong about the supports the city was already funded to provide and the rates for those. Now COG, the city, decided to withdraw its Saturday supports for people with disability because they didn't reach a positive resolution on that. Now it was just the Saturdays that they withdrew, and this meant the people who needed those supports on the Saturday had to look elsewhere. Sarah was among those, and that's a change, and there will be more and more of that where one has to adapt to the changing scene because of changing rates or conflicts. That's going to be part of it. But choice and control, get a Guernsey in there. So that's one of the not so goods, that sort of change. Another was, in Sarah's second plan that we did last August, there was approval for some handrails to help coming into the house. Now NDIA engaged an occupational therapist and, on our advice, a contractor to make and install the rails. Now that took just a couple of weeks, last August. Now it's more than 5 months on and still no handrails. Well, it turns out that NDIA have an agreement with a group called SWEP, Statewide Equipment Program, and they're the ones who need to pay the money in order to get that equipment. Now SWEP runs under Ballarat Health Services. It's got a whole bunch of full-time staff, but we heard nothing from SWEP till last week. And we got a letter saying that although we had NDIA approval, we'd need to complete some more forms. And then they would make a payment towards the cost. In other words, they'd make a payment, they said how much, they'd make that payment towards the cost. Well, that raises a whole bunch of questions, like does it cover the cost? What's left? Now, there was nothing of that in it. So I got after NDIA to chase SWEP, and SWEP are now saying, I only found this out today, that payment of theirs will cover all of the cost. So they're writing letters that are saying one thing and they're meaning another. There's another clause in what they want you to sign off on that says you will not take any action against the person who's going to install those rails if you have a problem with it. What sort of world is that in? So there's really some work NDIA, if they've got all this clout, ought to be doing with the likes of statewide equipment program to get things better than that. We need to get out of the dinosaur age and the sort of bureaucracy associated with that. So there are some hand-me-downs of days gone by that ought to be well and truly gone that aren't. So that was the second not so good. That's still a work in progress as far as we're concerned. The third one was NDIA has not yet released a critical discussion paper they've been talking of for a year around accommodation. Not just accommodation support, we're good for that. It's the actual accommodation, the bricks and mortar and stuff. And it's about time that happened. It's gone on too long. They've had the paper. So why are they sitting on that for so long? That's a not so good. But anyway, having said some not so goods, overwhelmingly it's been positive, a really positive journey. Just to mention one of the positives from Sarah's plan, and you'll know that a plan is made up of two bits. One's a participant statement, and then the second bit is statement of supports. Now in the participant statement, which is the one we ought to nail, we're the experts, we're the ones who know the people. NDIA can't tell you what your needs are and your aspirations and your goals. We know what they are. We tell them. It's really important that we nail that down. It then means when we come to the statement of supports where the NDIA planner and so on get in, that's where the argy-bargy is, because the NDIA planner is the one who's meant to be clued up on all the categories they have for supporting this and that and whatever. They've got to translate our needs into their framework for doing things, and that'll come out as the statement of supports. But unless we get it right, that other one, who knows what that's going to turn out to be. So to give you one example of a goal that we wrote down, we first of all, Sarah and I and Sarah's mum talked about the aspirations, looking ahead, 10 and 20 years. Now, I'm not going to be around, I guess, in 20 years anyway, but looking ahead quite a bit. That's what we need to do about aspirations, because Sarah will be around in that time. She's only 51. You don't mind me saying how old you are?
Well, I'm not speaking to it.
No. But that's true, 51. And so there's all that life ahead. So we need to be clear on what are those aspirations. Well, one of the goals that then came, they give you a whole bunch to write under, but one is education. So this is what we wrote as the education goal: to learn and apply it to opening the world for me. That's it. To learn, keep learning, and apply that to opening the world. Sounds big, but that's what aspirations are. So that's the goal. The objective was to develop practical literacy and communication skills on an iPad with a personal trainer. Now there's a way to open the world.
I'm not even saying nothing.
Yeah. And then you've got to write there under their headings how you're going to measure that. Well, what are the outcomes that you want? We want to be able to...
How about Pally in the morning?
Yep. So tomorrow morning, Thursday mornings, Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings, Sarah has a personal trainer who comes and works with her in what we call valued community settings. So it could be in a library, it could be in a community centre, could be Macca's. They've got Wi-Fi. So,
Could be anywhere. I'll say a bit of just like I said was.
okay.
Could I, if you guys will use iPads and ask someone else to help you.
Yep. So that's what happens on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings. So Sarah's learned about emailing, about texting, particularly with family and friends, both here in Australia and in the United States. So we do that sort of regularly. It's also about projects. And one of the things that Coringal brings is an expertise in this, particularly with iPads. I think there's great work being done by,
In the morning.
with some people leading. Leanne Dugdale is one staff who's developed really critical skills in that. And then there are others who are following on from that. So it's not just hokey pokey, filling time things. There are real skills that are learned that do open the world.
Yeah,
And so we've
yes.
experienced that. And in a way that's part of our job
That's
to,
good.
as a
Yes.
family, to make sure things happen that really do open the world for Sarah. So there are objectives in this, and then strategies that we write down. One strategy in doing that was use the NDIA funded support to access valued community and educational settings that have Wi-Fi. Don't just go to like the ordinary Coringal wherever. It's mix in the world. Go where other people go who value those settings. Another strategy was Coringal will plan and support development of skills and activities with us. And they did. We sat down and wrote down, here are the skills and here are the sort of projects that one could do. And over time, we looked at those to check off that it really did happen. And I tell you what, NDIA were very, very impressed and wanted a copy of the sheets that Coringal had put out that individualised what had happened in the time frame that Sarah had been doing that. So I couldn't speak, more highly on how that leadership occurred. Then we wanted, as part of the strategy, family and friends would support me being Sarah, and that I, Brian, would closely monitor the progress of this goal in conjunction with Coringal. That's the sort of stuff we had written down about that one goal, which was that education bit, to learn and apply that to open the world for us. So what's all that meant for Sarah? Well, she certainly looks forward to it, Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings. She enjoys meeting people at libraries, community centres and Macca's and wherever. She can now communicate much more readily with brothers and sisters and friends in different parts of Australia and the US. So what supports did Sarah receive through Coringal? Critical has been Coringal's capacity to listen, to learn from us, from families. That's different to the old days where an agency would tell you what was good for you, what they would provide for you. So that change to listen and learn has been really important, and it's going to need to continue, and Coringal wanted to continue. But the other third L, listen and learn, is about leadership. And Coringal is making great strides to be a leader in this field. And I just gave you the example of the iPad and the interest of NDIA and what Coringal was doing, indicative of Coringal's leadership in that area. Another one of your headings, Jackie, was what impact has NDIS had in yours and Barbara's lives? Well, I think we're a lot more confident now that financial resources will be available to provide accommodation for Sarah when we're no longer able to provide it. That's the accommodation support, not the bricks and mortar. We need a lot more conversations with NDIA and the future to find out how bricks and mortar work in all of that. But knowing there are financial resources even for that accommodation support is a huge load of especially older people in families. Then, but in the meantime, one of the impacts on us has been, with NDIA support, we've been able to use Coringal and also family to provide respite, both. So we've used family, not living with us, wherever, to where we are in a position to be able to provide funds to them to support Sarah while we have respite. That capacity to be able to do that is important, because if we're not going to be around, who's going to take it? And it's going to be the likes of Coringal or people, you know, in family, and in a way it's a preparation for that. So what advice can I give, which is Jackie's last question for me, what advice can you give about getting the best from NDIA planning process? I'd say there are three things. Make the most of choice and control. Make the most of it. Second thing, stick together. And the third one is, don't be daunted. Let me say something on each of those. Choice and control. My belief is that if you want choice and control, you need to be as close to the money as you can. Self-manage if you can. Or self-manage some of what you can and leave the rest to someone else. But be in there somewhere. And if you choose not to do it yourself, my suggestion is don't hand it all back to NDIA to say, you guys look after it and we'll be happy. Get an independent support agency to do it. Like a one that's doing excellent work is Green Pie from Barwon Disability Resource Council. It's independent of service provision. It's separate to the NDIA. They'll do advocacy. They'll do your pay your bills. They'll give you a monthly account. They'll do X, Y, and Z that manage all of that. So you're in on it, but they're doing the legwork. But one way or another, if you want choice and control, don't just give it away. So either self-manage or use the likes of Green Pie, and there are others too. So, second thing, stick together. Keep close to other families. Don't think you're on your own in this. There are groups like the Geelong Parent Network. There's the Geelong Accommodation Project. If you want to be in on what's happening there, Jackie runs that. There are other peer support groups. Get to know who they are. You don't have to go to a million meetings. You don't have to go to any. Get them to send you the minutes. Get them to send you the information. But you'll have people you can contact any time in those, because that's part of the deal in your membership of these. Contact them because you've got a query. You don't have to just contact NDIA. You don't have to just contact the service provider. Stick together with families. But you will benefit from Coringal, as Darryl has said, it's been doing legwork on advocacy and support from people because it was founded from families almost 60 plus years ago. The last thing is, don't be daunted. I know Lena said it's daunting, but if you're stuck out in an island on your own, maybe it is. But if you stick together with others and use others who are working through this, it will be less daunting. Especially don't be daunted in the participant part of the plan. It asks you for your aspirations, goals and objectives for a lot of life areas like health and well-being. NDIA know diddly about health and well-being for you. You guys are in the box seat for knowing it. So if you're the experts, NDIA can't tell you what they are for you. Your needs are linked to your aspirations, goals and objectives. And once you've got those at your fingertips, and you need to do the work on that over whatever time you've got, spend a lot of time at making sure you've got that nailed down. Then, when you talk to NDIA and the local area coordinator and all of their lot about what they call reasonable and necessary supports, then you can make your plan happen. So you've got something to bring, they have, and together you'll get a decent plan out of it. And it's a journey. It's not all wrapped up in one plan, but it's a good experience.